Darkseid artifacts have been one of the defining tools of the Sith for a millennia. During the days of the Ancient Galaxy and the Old Republic, the Dark Lords would imbue items with the dark side. These objects would become so potent that they eclipsed the power of their maker in rare cases. Many Sith Lords who lived after them would seek these items out and weave them into their nefarious schemes. Few loved Sith artifacts more than our own Darth Sidious, who made it a hobby to collect them. But the one Sith who utterly despised these evil trinkets was none other than his apprentice, Darth Vader. Vader has always been a rather unconventional Dark Lord to say the least. He cared very little about searching for the mysteries of the dark side, or learning from the ancient Sith. His fulfillment came from serving the Empire. But there was a time in the lore when Vader actively was seeking ways to overthrow his master Sidious, but the use of Sith artifacts was a line that he crossed only once and never again. The holocron opens yet again, my friends, whispering promises of knowledge, and if you hear their call, then give in and force crush that subscribe button. It is your destiny. Now, Acolytes, let's begin. Upon having his body and his potential taken away, it became uncertain how Vader would ever overthrow the Emperor. In the novel Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader, the newly suited Anakin was strolling through the ruins of the Jedi Temple. As he walks, in his mind, he mentions how he has not forgotten the fact that his new master was the one that engineered the Clone Wars, and that the last 3 years of Anakin's life, which had been a living hell, was all due to Palpatine. Nor had it gone over his head that Palpatine had simply used him as a tool to destroy the Jedi. Whether or not Vader agreed on whether the order should fall or not was irrelevant. The fact is that Vader had been a pawn, and he hated it. And he didn't appreciate being manipulated to this extent. Sidious had lied to him, taken everything from him. He had promised a way to save his wife Padme, and he had not delivered. The dark side was a sham that has cost him his very life, his friends, his marriage, and even his body. But now Darth Vader has nothing else but the dark side, and a new master to serve. But this is a young, wounded, aggressive Vader, and on that day he promised that Sidious would pay, vowing revenge on a day that would one day come. But how to achieve his revenge was a problem all its own. With his body damaged beyond repair, Vader was now cut down to being 20% less of the Emperor's total strength. While Sidious believed his apprentice's limitations were merely more psychological, Vader had yet to realize this, and even if Vader had, there was still the matter of his suit. Sidious had constructed Vader's armor to have a built-in Achilles heel. The alloy it was constructed from was superconductive to electricity. This of course made him extremely vulnerable to the Emperor's greatest weapon, Sith lightning. Not to mention in the early days, Anakin was still attempting to use the fact that he couldn't move and fight the way that he used to. His energetic lightsaber style could no longer serve his brand new body. His suit was heavy, the boots were clunky, the wires and the breathing apparatus kept him from being able to twist and turn in freedom, and his chest plate made it difficult to even lift his arms over his head. So on top of everything else, Vader was now having to adjust his whole fighting style to accommodate his new limitations. From Vader's perspective, he could now never hope to defeat Sidious with his own power alone. But of course, as the Sith know well, there are always alternatives. Darkseid artifacts were the natural place to go when a Sith needs more power. Despite neither Anakin nor Vader studying history all that much, he was still well aware of the power of these items, and luckily, he had even interacted with a few of them as a Jedi. As Anakin, he had accompanied Obi-Wan as a boy to find the holocron of King Adus. A college professor at the time specialized in Sith history, and had gone mad looking for this exact holocron, and the Jedi were in turn sent to stop him. Anakin would watch this professor quickly lose his mind to obsession, as the energies of the dark side took a hold. As a Sith, Vader hunted them down for Palpatine, but he never truly sought them out for his own uses. There are only 2 times in the lore that he actually uses Sith artifacts that we can point to in Legends and canon, but these only really occur when the artifacts are literally dropped in his lap. In Legends, Darth Sidious placed Lord Khan's Amulet of Invincibility within Darth Vader's right gauntlet. Because of this, Vader's right glove, and only his right glove, was virtually impervious to all forms of damage. But this was not Vader's choice. It was something Sidious infused within his armor during its construction. We don't exactly know why, as it's never stated. But we theorize that Palpatine did this not so much for the benefits of the amulet, but as a way of connecting his apprentice to the dark side. If it only had a small protection radius, then it was basically useless to the Emperor for any purpose besides harnessing its energy, so he passed it on to Vader. The amulet of Lord Khan would remain in Vader's glove his entire life, being one of the few pieces of his armor that survived his death. In canon, once it was Sidious who bequeathed to him another Sith artifact, believing that it would give him inspiration. This gift was the Mask of Darth Maulman. Mammon was an Old Republic Sith Lord who was essentially a serial killer and an artist. He had used his victims' body parts to craft horrific works of art to put on grand display. Once he was trained as a Sith Lord though, he carved up his own face to be a work of art, and then covered it with his mask. But while carrying out his master plan to eradicate an entire population, freezing it in a work of terrible art, not quite life and not quite death, he was stopped by a team of Jedi. But upon his death, Mammon infused his mask with his very spirit, and from that point on, any who wore the mask would be possessed by the spirit of the ancient Sith. Sidious gave this to Vader as it was a part of his private collection. This was meant to be a sort of reward. In this time, Vader was attempting to find a place of permanent residence, and he had now selected the world of Mustafar. The mask would possess the lead architect who was working on the castle of Vader, and used the Sith Lord's knowledge to design a palace meant to harness the energies of a nearby dark-side nexus. Darth Mammon told Vader that the nexus could be used to open a gateway between life and death using a portal in the Force. If he designed the castle the correct way, then he would be able to use the energies to bring his wife back from the dead. It took 9 different attempts, 9 different castle designs, each one failing due to one reason or another. The construct interacting with the Force Nexus was causing the planet and all of its inhabitants to go insane, and continued to interrupt all of their work. With each failure though, Vader killed Mammon's host body out of anger, before slapping the mask on some other hapless victim to continue his work. The 9th and the final design was Fortress Vader as we know it, but Mammon betrayed Vader and resurrected himself instead of Padme, bringing his own body back from the dead and reuniting it with his mask. Vader won that duel and killed the old Sith, though it came at the cost of the resurrection cavern beneath the fortress being completely destroyed. But with all of that said, there was a single defining moment that caused Vader to swear off Sith artifacts entirely, and it occurred during his very first year. In the books of legends, Vader would end up finding a stasis casket containing the still living body of Celeste Morn, an Old Republic Jedi Shadow. In this era, the Jedi had taken it upon herself to wear the Mur Talisman. This artifact had been created by the Sith Karness Mur, one of the original 12 Dark Jedi who founded the Sith Order. His talisman contained his spirit, and it had the power to turn any nearby Force sensitive into a being known as a Rakghoul mutant. These creatures would be under the power of the wearer, effectively giving them the ability to create a Rakghoul army of their own. Celeste had decided to sacrifice her own life and sanity to wear the talisman, and to contain the spirit of the ancient Sith Lord within herself, so that he could cause no more harm. But the amulet wore on her mind, and even threatened to bring her to the edge of the dark side itself. She had herself then placed in a stasis chamber until a cure could be found, and a method to destroy the ancient dark evil. Unfortunately though, the brave Jedi would be forgotten, and would lay in stasis from the time of Revan until the era of the Galactic Empire, and now Lord Vader. When she was awoken by Vader, she quickly learned that not only had she been dormant for thousands of years, but that the Sith now ruled the galaxy. She immediately attacked Vader, and entered a vicious duel. The Dark Lord, however, was impressed with the Old Republic Jedi, and had no desire to kill her. He instead saw her as a tool, perhaps a suitable enough apprentice. But during their combat, the spirit of Karness Mur saw how powerful Vader was, and desired to possess him. He ordered Celeste to give the amulet to Vader, or to allow Vader to strike her down. But the Jedi again resisted, and Mur began to hiss in Vader's ear. The ancient Sith gave him visions of using the amulet's power to slay the Emperor, to finally claim the galaxy as his own. Vader considered the thought for only a brief moment though, before quickly dismissing it. Darth Vader was no fool, and he could perceive to accept the talisman would be to trade one master for another. In the end, Celeste would use the power of the talisman to turn Vader's stormtrooper into Rakghouls, forcing the Dark Lord to retreat and abandon the planet. And from that point on, Vader would never pursue Sith artifacts again, at least not for himself. In canon, he encountered a couple more artifacts that had belonged to Sidious. Vader was sent to retrieve the twin crossguard sabers of Darth Atreus. These lightsabers were deeply infused with the dark side, and caused a near uncontrollable blood rage to afflict anyone who was using them. Only those experienced with the dark side, such as Sith, would be able to wield the saber without giving in completely to their rage, seeing only blood and death. And even then, the lightsabers were so potent in the dark side that even Vader said that they were clouding his vision. Darth Vader said that. He managed to get one of the lightsabers back, and would deliver it to Sidious, but the other was sold to a crime lord, and upon receiving it, the crime boss immediately succumbed to the blood rage, and murdered every one of his subordinates. Vader was then sent to retrieve the other half, putting him on a collision course with the Rebellion yet again. But now let's move on to some deeper lore. At the end of Vader's life on the second Death Star, one of the Emperor's enchanted rings would fall out of his cargo as it was being loaded into his chambers. The ring was then found by the construction foreman, who discovered that it could actually raise the dead. The foreman then used it on the Death Star's morgue in order to resurrect more workers, putting them back on construction duty, doing all of this in order to meet the Emperor's deadline, which had suddenly become possible now again. The situation quickly spiraled though, as the zombified workers continued to attack the other Death Star employees, and now the virus was spreading out of control, as the foreman lost control of the ring and was not strong enough willed to control the undead. Vader ended up stumbling across this, and slew a few of the undead before getting control of the ring himself. He then punished the foreman for allowing the zombies to attack and turn on him, but before returning the ring to Sidious, Vader ordered the undead to continue their construction effort, as it had indeed proved to be efficient. In the end though, Vader never desired to use Sith artifacts for his own means. Each time he interacted with them or saw them being used, the result was disastrous. To Vader, cursed items do more harm than any good. They are treacherous in nature, as all things in the dark side are, and no one knows this better than Vader. These items only ever truly obey their creators, or those who can dominate them, and while he technically could dominate them if he wanted to, it doesn't appear as though he wanted to take the risk. The already weak and ailing condition of his body could hamper his attempts to usurp control of the artifact, and if those things could smell blood in the water, they will turn and attack. Also, Sidious had corrupted and held all the knowledge on how to actually interact with these artifacts, intelligently keeping it away from Vader. But with all of that said, Vader still had plans to conquer Sidious. Vader turns to the idea of something that he's far more familiar with, an apprentice. It would begin with Galen Marek and his clones, but once that experiment failed, he would attempt again with Luke Skywalker. People were far more predictable than amulets were, and this became Vader's preferred method. Vader had mastered how to control people through fear and psychological manipulation, offering power. After all though, he had learned this all from the best. But anyway, my friends, this is why Vader stopped hunting down Sith artifacts. If you enjoyed this deeper dive and have questions of your own that you want answered, be sure to comment them down below about a galaxy far, far away, and we'll be happy to research and explore. And until next time, thank you so much for joining us in the archives today, and may the Force be with you.